let's do this. Share screen. Let's go. All right, Jessica, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Sweet. All right. Yeah, let's go. Welcome everybody. This is the first monthly education session for PromoStandards in 2024. For those of you OGs and longtime followers, we do this on the third Tuesday of every month, very consistently from here to the end of the year. We tend to start it off a little lighter, and then as the months progress here, I think you'll see us in the coming months deep dive the new services that were talked about and launched at the PromoStandards Tech Summit in St. Pete Beach last month, actually. So shocking that it was just about a month ago. So it's a good time to regroup, start over. So we tend to get a lot of new faces on this particular one. People who are kind of new on the fringes promo standards, and we also get some people who've been around just looking to see what's different, what's upcoming, and how things are progressing. So real quick, if you're new to this, I'm John Norris, the Chief Strategy Officer at Promotional Products. I was the initial chair of PromoStandards, and now I work with Amy on the Membership and Marketing and Education Committee, and I head up the education side of what we do here at PromoStandards. So, yeah, longtime volunteer, good stuff. One of the things that you'll see from us at PromoStandards is we try to stay pretty close to our mission. We've been, starting off all the education sessions for this is our third year now of education, just reminding ourselves what we're about and what we're here for. So we collaborate to create industry-leading open standards, open parts important, that enable industry participants to improve customer experience, reduce transactional friction, and effectively execute digital strategy. Right now, we are estimating that there was somewhere north of 3 to 4 billion transactions through PromoStandards in the industry last year. We kind of did some metrics from key suppliers and then backed and extrapolated that data. So, it's we've come a long way since 2015, since the early days, and now that we're about 9 years into this, or I would say 6 years into this formally, 5. As a nonprofit organization, I think we've learned a lot, and I think you're going to see a lot of cool stuff coming out of PromoStandards this year. So I'm excited. So it's good to get back on the education wagon. So I went back and looked at some of my past education presentations, and from about April on, we tend to promote the Tech Summit, and it was sad for me to do a presentation without talking about the Tech Summit. So I just left this slide in here to remind myself of. It would be a placeholder for future educations for when we fire back up Tech Summit 3.0. So yeah, stay tuned, but I'm not going to pitch everybody to sign up for the Tech Summit today. So you have a 3-month reprieve on that, maybe 4, and then come summertime, we're going to ramp that engine back up. So yeah, let's get started here. So I often get, these are kind of the do's and don'ts, right? I get asked a lot, like, who is PromoStandards? What is PromoStandards? It happens less often these days than it did 4 or 5 years ago, but I still think it's important to make sure we can kind of know what we're about, right? So PromoStandards is an official nonprofit in the state of Pennsylvania. We're a 501c6. Your traditional nonprofits are 501c3s. What makes us different is that we're a member organization. So technically we're a business league if you were to, brush up against the old IRS, but, we are registered in Pennsylvania with the IRS and the US government. So you can always Google PromoStandards. And if you fire up the Google machine right now, you can probably get exposure to all of our financials since we report those yearly. We do all the things that we should do in terms of bylaws, formalities, all that fun stuff. At our core, we are a standards body for the promotional products industry. We often get approached by other industries about, hey, will PromoStandards work in print? Will PromoStandards work in the promo industry in UK and Australia? Go down a list of countries that I think we've had conversations with, but I think what's important for us is that we got a lot going on in our industry right now. I think we've pushed north of 30 billion, depending on what article you read and what day of the week. But, I think what makes us unique is that the industry has tried this before and tried to ram in a automotive standard or some other random standard for a different industry into the promotional products industry. What we do is unique. What we do is complicated because we handle configurations. I literally just got done giving a tour to a CEO of one of the top 10 distributors in the industry, and he was saying how, the product side of what we do is very easy. The difficulty is the fact that every single one of them, every order is unique and completely customized. So it's just something to keep in perspective that, anybody can sell a widget. It's the fact that we can decorate that widget 47 different ways in 12 different locations and a bunch of different FOB locations makes it complicated. One of the things I think you've been seeing come out of PromoStandards the last few years, more than the initial days, is the technology community really trying to push innovation. So you'll see this, at our tech summits. You'll see this kind of in our Slack channels. We're really trying to foster a collaborative community in the industry of thought leaders and people who want to communicate and share best practices with their peers within the industry and outside the industry. So, Slack is a great way for that. And then events we have throughout the year. So we do, I would say, 3 events a year. The big flagship is the Tech Summit, which is in February every year. We try to do a get together in the summertime, typically around ASI Chicago. And then we always have some sort of informal gatherings out in Vegas as well at the PPI Expo. So, you'll see more of that community building come out of us as we progress throughout this year. And, I think we're a leading advocate for technology and innovation in the industry. You see a lot of our board members, a lot of our members, and just general people in our community speaking on panels, really trying to be thought leaders and progress both the integration space and then PromoStandards throughout the industry. So that's the dues. So I think sometimes it's just helpful. This probably explains more about PromoStandards by saying what we aren't. So the uninformed user of the industry who's not familiar with PromoStandards often makes the misconception that PromoStandards is a software. PromoStandards is not a software, obviously. PromoStandards is not a subscription service, right? There's a miscommunication of like, hey, if I sign up for a monthly feed of PromoStandards, do I get all my product data, right? That's not how it works. We're not a service provider. Right, so PromoStandards does not directly offer tech support. We do not offer software solutions for the promotional products industry. Obviously, going back to we're a standards body. We develop standards. We develop standards for the promotional products industry, and so there's a big divide between those two pieces. Also, not a search engine. That one comes up a lot. People assume that we aggregate industry data and we populate it into some sort of search mechanism. That is not the case. There are a handful of service providers that do that and do that very well in this industry. I would say 4 out of the 5 hackathon entries this year were using AI and search engines to aggregate PromoStandards data. So there's that's out there. Obviously, I mentioned we're not a product data aggregator. And we're not a middleware piece of software. Some people think that it's a plugin that they can bolt onto their ERP or onto their website and poof, all the magic happens. So while these aren't what we do, there is a lot. This is not what we do. There are a lot of service providers and solutions providers who have built businesses and some pretty cool tools around what PromoStandards has enabled today. So kind of a little bit of information about PromoStandards organization. Right now, there's a little bit north of 2,500 supplier endpoints being hosted by various companies that are on PromoStandards. Like I said, we're north of, we're in the billions of transactions that are happening every year now. We're seeing significant growth. I'd say a lot of that growth in the last 2 years has come on the back of the service providers. The large distributors and large suppliers, a lot of them are there. I would say The service providers are helping reach the edges of the industry. The industry has a traditionally long tail, and that's where the service providers are coming to play. You're also seeing with the emergence of popular software like NetSuite, obviously is one of them. I go down the list, M4, you're seeing a lot of adoption coming through plugins that are tailored around PromoStandards for those pieces of software. But I would say the members of PromoStandards on the service provider community, the Essence, commonsku's, Performas, Anteras, Distributor Essentials, OMGs, right? Go down the list. They are heavily driving integration of PromoStandards into their platforms. And I think that's where this thing has been scaling astronomically in the last few years. So back to the organization of PromoStandards, just to kind of give you an idea of the who is PromoStandards. So we'll kind of rifle through that right now. So we have a 12-person board that is currently chaired by Catherine Graham, commonsku. She is our chair for 2024, and Amy Rabidou at Facilis is also, I missed Facilis in the software conversation. Amy would call me out on that. Amy is our vice chair right now, and then Phil is in year 3 of being our treasurer, holding down the fort with the numbers. And and Eric Alessi is our immediate past chair. So this crew here makes up our PromoStandards board, and it's an exciting group to work with. We meet quarterly and then once in person a year, prior to twice in person a year, to do strategic planning and development and setting the goals of what we want to accomplish each year with PromoStandards. So real quick on how PromoStandards is organized, and back on the who is PromoStandards. And then I'll stop talking and we'll get into some live demos and things here. Like I said earlier, before we joined, if you have questions throughout the way, please feel free to ask all the questions you want, throw them in the Q&A, banter in the chat, either way. I'll make sure that we answer every single question before we end the session here. But as an organization, PromoStandards has a board, and then there's a series of committees that are really doing the work. In the early days of PromoStandards, the board did the majority of the work because they were the only members of the organization. But as we fan this out, we now have 7 different committees that have unique missions and are really the operating arm of PromoStandards. The, I guess, fun, attractive committee that from a technologist that really does a lot of the heavy lift of the dev work is a standards committee. So Eric's run that committee for a long time, and it's a pretty driven group of people. If you're on the dev side and really looking to get involved there and with how these standards are authored, I say the commitment there is just if you're on that committee, make sure that you're willing to be on a alpha adoption of one of the new standards. Then there's the executive committee, which is comprised of a handful of board members looking over the operational aspects of PromoStandards. Every year, Mike Napick leads our nomination committee to find new board members, new committee chairs, and kind of go through that process. Like I mentioned earlier, I serve on the Membership Marketing Education Committee, which is run by Amy. We have a best practices committee. This was a committee that didn't exist until halfway through. We realized that we needed to have documentation for the best way or the optimal ways to interpret the standards. The standards, PromoStandards is essentially a library of Word docs and then some WSDLs behind the scenes. But we found that there was some rogue interpretations of those Word docs out in the wild. So the Best Practices Committee has gone standard by standard, adding additional layers of documentation to each standard, and then clearing up any ambiguity into those standards as well. There was also the Service Provider Committee. So Dave Schultz runs this one. This was another kind of, we realized that these service providers have unique needs and a place in the industry and PromoStandards. We created a collaborative committee where they can make sure that the PromoStandards is keeping in mind the needs of the service providers when building out standards and adoption and methodologies going forward. And then over on the edge there, we have a strategic roadmap committee who works heavily with the board and the executive committee to develop our path forward and what are the both technological and membership objectives we need to be meeting each year. Just kind of this this group of people here. So these are all of our committee chairs. So I'm sure I'll say this a few more times as we go through. If you're looking to get involved in promo standards, directly reach out to one of these people. They're all in Slack. I'll talk about Slack here in a minute, but this is where the membership and the things really get done inside of Promo Standards. So I recommend you connect to them on LinkedIn, connect to them on Slack, whatever you got to do. So a good group of people right there. So like I was just saying, and I'm gonna hop over and do some demos here. I'm gonna walk through some pieces, but Promo Standards is a 100% volunteer organization, right? None of us get paid to do this. We do this for the betterment of the industry and the organization. I think we have a passion for automation. So if you're sitting here today, like, hey, wondering how I get started, how I get involved, you can reach out to any of these people you saw back here on this slide. If you know any of them, they can get you pointed in the right direction. You can reach out to Jessica. Jessica is your best resource at Promo Standards. She is our admin. Her email is admin@promostandards.org. She is the best matchmaker you can find in Promo Standards. So she's constantly connecting suppliers, distributors, service providers, answering questions, getting people signed up with membership. She does it all. So if you're looking for a just single source resource, I would always start there. So one of the things, and I'm not going to turn this into a sales pitch, but it's important that we constantly are talking about membership, is Promo Standards is a member-driven organization, meaning that we have 3 levels of Promo Standards, advisory, adopting, associate, and all those are varying degrees of both annual fees and what your membership levels get you within the organization. So if you're just looking to, contribute, be involved in Slack, get involved in like the directories, the listings of standards, post your endpoints, that associate member is really the place for you. If you're looking to work and be on a committee or a work group, that adopting member is really probably where you should be in that $2,500 tier. And then if you're interested in crafting and working on the strategic direction of promo standards, drafting standards, voting and ratifying standards, that advisory member group is really where it's at. I think today there's 30 plus companies that are advisory members, a dozen or so adopting, and hundreds of associate members. So we have a pretty strong membership roster right now. It's always growing. I think we're seeing with the strong emergence of the service provider presence, there is less of a demand on the distributor membership level. You're seeing it skew heavily towards suppliers and service providers, and there are a lot of fringe industry technology companies that are popping up. There's specifically focusing on promo standards. So next I want to kind of talk about the standards themselves, and then we'll, like I said, at some point here, we're going to get into a demo, just kind of poke around the website, and I'll just kind of show you some things that might be helpful to you. But there's really, I would say, 3 core sets of standards, right? We try to break these things out, and I'm going to, on the next slide, kind of dive into these, but we have those introductory standards, which I tend to call the low-hanging fruit. Then there's a whole series of standards that are both based around product data. Then there's our transactional pieces, and then there's really the helper and the future standards, kind of the pieces are out on the fringes that help with all the pieces come together. So really, how does that work? This is our core offering today of different standards that are out there in the wild. You've seen promo standards for the last year develop more. This is essentially the way that the standards were developed, right? Inventory, order status, or shipment notification, the product data, product media, product price configuration all came out roughly at the same time. Then POs and invoices, and then most recently, the order management service, which is about to be released out to the wild. If you were at the Tech Summit, you saw a good preview of this. So essentially, we started with version 1 point something. The various 1.90s were because there was bugs in the releases, but we've been level setting the standards throughout the last 2 years. What that means is we had inconsistent naming conventions, inconsistent error handling. So the last 2 years have been building out where necessary and actually there is no product media 2.0. That's a lie. So where we're at today is, I would say inventory 1.2 and 2.0. 2.0 has a very wide level of adoption. So what's the difference between those two standards? Inventory 2.0 essentially handles the ability to flag items as manufactured goods, meaning you have unlimited inventory, handles multiple location FOB inventory providers, such as, if Samar has 10 warehouses, they can list their inventory by warehouse, by SKU, add some better filtering mechanisms to for large products. That's the products that have large sets of SKUs. You can directly filter on those and not get a massive payload. So that was inventory. Order status, same deal. So these top three: order status, inventory, order ship notification, have very, very wide adoption, meaning that there's hundreds and hundreds of suppliers that are adopting each of these standards. So this is the low-hanging fruit, high ROI, low cost of implementation. Order status 1 was the OG order status, essentially just, rolls down and allows you to filter order statuses on a PO, a sales order, and then get all of the relevant order status information that a supplier might have. Order shipment notification, back to 2.0. 2.0 was the newest iteration of order status. Essentially what 2.0 does is separates hold statuses from regular order statuses and kind of sets up the order management service down the road. Obviously, order shipment notification. There is a 1.0 in the wild. 2.0 is about to become 2.1 as we jam a ASN into OSN. So more to come from that. If you were at the Tech Summit, you heard all about that. So I will let those of you who were there dive into that. Then that next tier that we have is really your product data tier. So we have two versions of product data. 1.0 was our first attempt at it. That had no pricing in it. Product data 2.0 is very relevant for website information. You could display all of the information you need on your website using product data 2.0. It has basic pricing, key value pairs for deco, locations. It really doesn't get into the configuration elements, but passes enough of the run charge information back into there to maintain relevancy. Product media, that's a lie. There's only one version of product media. It's not a lie that's changing a product media ever. It just allows you to get all the images, videos, templates, files, anything you have associated with each product. And then the end all be all, the product price configuration service right now has a 1.0 in the wild and a 2.0 that the standards committee is currently drafting and working their way through, hopefully to be released sometime in the middle of this year. I would say for those of you who are on the fence about adopting today, I wouldn't wait for 2.0 to come out to do 1.0. 1.0 product pricing configuration has such a wide level of adoption with over 100 suppliers adopting PPC 1.0. That next tier of services down there is, it's really the transactional layer of PromoStandards. So the top layer is, those low-hanging fruit, quick wins to shore up your, order flow and your order management side of your business. The second one is to get all your product data, which really sets up the end-all be-all, which is purchase orders. Purchase orders, I'd say there's hundreds of suppliers that are currently accepting electronic purchase orders. There are two ways to do purchase orders. One is simple, one is configured. I would lean everybody heavily towards configured purchase orders. While simple purchase orders are great at transmitting header information, and maybe if you're a blank apparel supplier, where back to the complexities of the industry, what we do is difficult, and that always comes at the purchase order level through configuration. I've been saying this, if you have attended any of my education sessions, I always harp on invoice service being the low-hanging fruit. For those of you who are vouching and doing the painful three-way match for invoices from service providers to decorators to suppliers, it's a gross process. Solve those problems in invoice 1.0. It's actually 1.1 because it was another one that got released with the bug, but that's all good. One of the other services that is soon to be released that was talked about at our Tech Summit last month is order management. It's a pretty hot service that allows you to update specific elements of an order. You can update shipping address information, line item details, ship methods, prepayment information. There's a whole host of individual methods that allow you to be very specific when managing your orders that are already in-house from a supplier relationship. Some of the pieces on the side over there that kind of ride along for free, we realized that in order to build out a directory, we launched a company information service that was talked about at the Tech Summit. And then we've always had the compliance service, which is really part of product data. Right now, the compliance service was built to specifically handle Prop 65 and was built out with a framework to adjust additional product data compliance issues as they arise. So, I would say of the new pieces of PromoStandards, obviously, OSN 2.1, order management 1.0, and then company information are going to be the real big pushes this year on the forefront of PromoStandards. So, yeah, I'd be right. Last year, one of our big pieces that came out of the service provider, well, we spun up a service provider committee, but they put together a service provider directory. So I say we don't make software, but our members do. About once a year, and if you go back through the YouTube channel of education sessions, we highlight our member service providers and some of the services and the tools that they offer utilizing PromoStandards. We try to do one of these panels at all of our education events. Our goal here is, we have some pretty innovative members in our industry that are making cool things with PromoStandards, and the more we can highlight that, the better. And we do that on our website in the service provider directory. So we're going to hop into a bit of I'm going to share my browser here for a second. Give me 2 seconds while I share another screen. Yes, Slack channel webinar is recorded. 2 seconds. Next, we're just gonna go hog wild and share the whole screen here. Minimize this. Okay, so here we go. What I want to do now is I want to kind of talk about some, of the getting started and navigating PromoStandards and our website. So one thing I just mentioned, let's start with the homepage. So once you are if you're not a member, if you're not a member and you're not signed in, I'm signed in right now. Yeah, you can log onto our website and then go to the membership section of the website, and then you can sign up to become a member. Jessica can also walk you through that process when you go down that route. Once you log in as a member to PromoStandards, you now get a whole host of, sorry, it's under the join membership application. There we go. I'll have to talk about this. Real quick, one of the things we launched last year, and I know I'm kind of scatterbrained on this, but we did a We Standardize on PromoStandards campaign. So what we did is we highlighted all of the companies, or I guess a majority of companies who have publicly signed off on our program that says PromoStandards is our, what does it say? Blah, blah, blah. PromoStandards is, we essentially say it's their preferred integration method for the promotional product industry. So as you see, there's tons and tons of suppliers, distributors, service providers who are on record saying that if you're going to integrate with us, we would prefer that you do it through PromoStandards. So back to the old homepage here. Once you're logged in, you get a whole host of resources that become available. As we were talking about here, the service provider directory is a key piece of that. So what we have put together here, and there's an education session where Schultz goes through it. These are all the member service providers who are participating in PromoStandards, and they talk about the different services that they offer and then what their company does. So for example, let's pick on one. AIM Smart, so AIM Smart is a PromoStandards compatible application, and it talks about how they're using PromoStandards. Same thing with commonsku. commonsku uses PromoStandards for their product data, PO submissions, order status, and order shipment notifications. So it's just really, if you're looking to find somebody, then it gets down into here, like Distributor Central offers integration services. So I would recommend, if you're curious, this is a great resource to find people who are helping people get started with PromoStandards. Like I said, we don't make software, but our members do, and there's a whole bunch of them that are doing this. So definitely go through this list, and you'll find some pretty talented service providers in the industry. All right, back up to the other pieces of the website. So one of the things that gets overlooked is two pieces. We have our member directory, right? So if you're ever looking to find somebody in the directory, this is loading. So this goes through and only for logged in members list our members who are there. One of the pieces Jessica worked very hard on in the last year was finding technical contacts. So we often get the question of who should I contact at Sanmar, right? So at Sanmar, a J is listed as a technical contact, right? So, let's see, Alpha. So same thing here, it's always sometimes a crapshoot of trying to find the right person at the right company. So some of the, we've been trying to make this easier and more functional over the time to find the right people at the right company. But so, if you were looking for the technical contacts that hit, Raj is going to be your contact. So that's another resource that a lot of people didn't know exist. So back to the resources, we want to kind of talk about a few of these other pieces. So I mentioned earlier a J in the best practices committee. So the best practices committee runs a Confluence page that really goes through, literally walk through if you're a supplier, what are the different pieces. Literally, here's all the services that they've gone through. So product data 2.0, they add on and append different pieces of information to every service. So I'd say it's a very in-depth set of standards. So these are things that even me as a member sometimes forget about that exist out there in the wild. Quick, go back to this. Sorry, trying to move this. There we go. Okay. A few other pieces back to the PromoStandards. Back to the resources. So we went over the PromoStandards best practices. The next few pieces I want to talk about are the endpoints, the services and documentation, and the PromoStandards web validator. So when you click on that menu, you get brought to the current PromoStandards service listing. So what this is every piece of documentation per service, per version that exists out there in the wild. So right now, if you're looking for inventory documentation, we've long since deprecated 1.0 because it was broken, but inventory 1.2 and 2.0 are out there. So with this, you can view the Word doc standard for what's out there. So it goes through all the changes on the actual technical documentation. You can also download the WSDLs, the XSDs, and all the technical pieces that you will need to do the implementation if you are a supplier or service provider hosting an endpoint. So this goes through all the services, everything that's being offered, kind of gives you their status. So we've deprecated a few old kind of auxiliary services that should never have been launched and were out there in the wild, and we've since reined in. Next piece, I think it's important to know this list started as about 20 different endpoints and it's grown to thousands and thousands of endpoints. So it's a bit cumbersome to navigate these days. But through searching and filtering and sorting, we've, pretty much you can come to our endpoint listing and this gives you the WSDL, it gives you all the technical information and saying, 135 promos, this is their inventory, this is the URL for their live and test endpoints. So for example, if I pull up our hit ones, I should be able to come into here. And here's our production endpoint, and here's our test endpoint. It gives you the status of each service. So that exists out there. This was much easier when there was 20 endpoints, and now there's thousands. I think we're going to have to get better at helping distributors, service providers find supplier endpoints. But like I said, it's a pretty gargantuan listing and undertaking. So, I mean, HIT alone has about almost 20 different endpoints that are live with PromoStandards through all the different versions. You'll see our OS and 2.0s in here. Some other call outs, inventory 2.0, product data 2.0. So yeah, it's all out there and in the wild. Yeah.
Just one quick question that Chad Sparrow commented, since you're on endpoints, he said, what is the protocol for suppliers to have these endpoints updated?
It's important. So I guess how do you do it is a supplier goes to this page and then they log in as themselves. So as a supplier, let's say I manage HIT endpoints. So I come into here after I'm logged in using my PromoStandards.org credentials. I can manage my endpoints into this page. So I come in and I add a new one. If it changes, I go in here and change the URL. The protocol is, as a supplier, it's in my best interest to keep my endpoint listing up to date. If your endpoints are not up to date, I guarantee you nobody's going to integrate with you. So as if you see a bogus, as a consumer, if you see bogus endpoints out there, call out or reach out to Jessica on those, and we'll see if we can either see if it's a bad link or if it's somebody that's gone dormant on us, and we can get that removed from the directory. But as a supplier, you work with Jessica to make sure that you're getting access to manage your own credentials in here, or not credentials, sorry, to access your own endpoints, and you can come in here and manage them. For example, if I want to maintain my HIT one, I come in here and change that. We're working on streamlining this process right now. PromoStandards is going through a web build out process, and we'll update more on that in the coming months as we make progress there. But no, it's a great question on the endpoints. One other piece while we're here, I often get questions of how do I get credentials to suppliers' endpoints? There's a few ways to get credentials. One, you could just find the technical contact or find a contact at that company and reach out through your traditional sales channels. Or a more, I guess, automated, friendly version that we tend to see working well in the wild is if you were coming in here and wanted to get access to HITs endpoints, all of our URLs and endpoints have this little key next to them. And you can come in here and say, hey, I want credentials to HIT stuff. Come in here, fill out the form, put in your information into here. And then you say, hey, can I get credentials? You hit submit. So PromoStandards does not engage in swapping credentials. We're not a credentialing firm. What this does, it fires off an email to our contacts at HIT, myself, Tiffany, Raj, Chaz, and says, hey, somebody's looking for, this person's looking for your credentials. That's handled offline. The credentials link process is handled between the supplier and the distributor, the supplier and the service provider, or whatever combo of entities you want. But PromoStandards is essentially just the form to pass along to our contacts to make that process a little less painful. 2 seconds. Okay, great. So that's the credentialing piece. So every supplier, every endpoint has this little key next to it for how you can request credentials. As always, Jessica also cannot issue credentials for any supplier, any distributor. But if you're having troubles and you're not getting anywhere with the supplier, she can sometimes point you in the right direction. I would also encourage you to just reach out to people directly in Slack as well as another way to get a hold of people. For those of you who are not members, PromoStandards operates a Slack community of 487 people right now because I just added everybody in the general channel. It's a great way to communicate with technologists in our industry and just get direct lines of communications to the developers, the C-level technologists, the business analysts, the integration leads. The whole suite of people are living in our Slack channel every day. So I would make sure that you're, as a member, benefit there and participating there. One last piece, it's kind of another oddly not known piece of PromoStandards. Sometimes I guess from both a supplier level and then a testing level. One of our resources is the web service validator. So what this is just a simple tool for you to come in, select any piece of information, any service, any version, and whichever operation. You put in the supplier URL, the endpoint that you want, pump in your credentials, which, for every service and method is different, your username, password, and, the different, obviously OSN has the 3 different query or 4 different query types, tokens, all that fun stuff. And this is a good way to see test data coming back from supplier and service provider endpoints. And it kind of tells you if the results are valid or not, or if they're kind of misformed and not forming to the whistle. So it's just another tidbit of information that exists out there. All right, I'm going to hop back into this PowerPoint. Jessica, if you can let me know if, oh shoot, if you see my screen.
Yes, I can
You
see
see
it.
the PowerPoint slides? All right, perfect. Okay, so we talked about gaining endpoints, talked about the website. All right, so this slide here, your best PromoStandards resources. I've said this 12 times so far in this meeting, but obviously Jessica, who's on the call here, she organizes all of our chaos, but she's the best resource you have today. Slack, which I just talked about, get involved in Slack, become a member. You have to become a member to get into Slack. It's just, we're trying to make sure that we're providing a safe space and a good conduit for communication for our community. That's where it's happening. I talked about the PromoStandards directory. If you don't know, that is feeding live to our membership data, meaning that it should be fairly up to date because it's essentially tied into our CRM through the membership platform portal that we use. Monthly education, we're back. You're obviously participating in this today. You know what we're doing, right? It's a third Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern. I promise that you don't have to listen to me for 10 straight months. We're going to mix it up this year and get a little bit more engagement from some of the different committee members, from different members across, service providers. Really, I think we tried to keep this where we keep every other one is highly technical. So we kind of do a lighter one, and then we get into the weeds for just about every other month. So next week, we'll probably be doing a deeper dive into specific standards. My guess is probably either order management or OSN 2.1. Reach out to the committee chairs. I highlighted them in one of the slides. Great resources. They're great starting points for getting volunteering into our network. We're always looking for volunteers, always looking for help. Just make sure that if you're going to commit to being a volunteer, it's a call a month and maybe some homework but here and there, and making sure that you're working with your committee members and really driving forward the initiatives that our strategic roadmap committee and the board have set out for the year. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about our tech summit all that much, but we have an awesome tech summit every year. It's the best 3 days of collaboration into the tech space for this industry. So you'll hear information about that all year. The question came up in Slack, is this being recorded? Yes, we record every single one of these. And we have a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type in PromoStandards, and you can see the past 20 education sessions. It is the reason we do this session once a year is to make sure that it's always our most viewed video on PromoStandards on our YouTube channel. People just, looking for answers, trying to figure out what is PromoStandards. It's a great place to get started. But all of the technical deep dives, last year we tried to get through every single standard of doing a technical dive into them. So if you had a question on the meaning of a field, the best practices to implement it, we dove through many of those. There might only be 1 or 2 standards left out there in the wild that we haven't done. So some of them are a little boring and technical. I get it. But if you're going to adapt the PPC service, there's 2 sessions recorded on YouTube about product pricing configuration. So definitely check that out. It's out there in the wild. I think also we're going to be adding some sessions from our tech summit to YouTube. That could be fake news, but I don't think it is. I think we're going to be doing that. Also, social media. I think we're most active on Instagram and Facebook, but very active on LinkedIn, a little bit of X. But I think just if you're out there and looking to engage with us, make sure you kind of, give us the likes, throw some kind of positive comments our way on social media, help drive the reach for what we're doing there. And lastly, I think this year it's an exciting year for us. I think we've laid a very solid foundation in a volunteer community and a framework for success. And this is the year we take advantage and really drive adoption and implementation, drive purchase orders, drive invoice integrations. That all starts with good product data. We've been saying this for years. If your product data is garbage, you're going to struggle to do purchase order integration, especially configured purchase orders. So, I think this kind of is my take on it. We're really all aboard the pirate ship here, and gearing up for a pretty good year this year in PromoStandards. So having said that, I'm going to stop the share here, and we do have a few questions. Yes, I know, that was funny. I actually I have to renew my membership. Jessica and I just addressed that about 5 minutes for the call. Suppose we are a service provider. Can we become a middleware without having customer website and integration with PromoStandards? How can it be achieved? Okay. Yes. If you're a service provider, and what you would need to do is gain credentials to as many supplier endpoints as possible. And I guess ingest all that data and host it. So, example, we have a member, very long time member, Distributor Central / OMG now. They have a piece of middleware that they both develop PromoStandards endpoints and they aggregate PromoStandards endpoints and have I think it's DC one source, right? So what they've done is over the years, Pablo and Chris and that whole crew have consumed all the endpoints and map them to their internal data and their processes, and now they regurgitate them all over. That's a bad word. They reserve up that data across the industry to tons of service providers, suppliers, distributors, you name it. So the way to do it is, yes, consume a bunch of data, store it on your side. As a supplier, my hesitancy towards that model is I'm okay with that. I know that the reason I mentioned DC one source is I know they don't manipulate our data. I've seen other aggregators or middlewares that will manipulate our data. If you're taking my hit data and doing something else to it that is no longer my true source of data, it's tough for me to do a PO and PPC integration with that data set when it's no longer my data. I'm expecting certain values to come back on a purchase order. So I would say if you are going to do that, Pablo and Chris got it right by adhering to the standards and how the data initially came over and doing as little manipulation as possible. But where they're manipulating it would probably be on a more stripping out special characters, just doing basic stuff, but not changing the true, I guess, initial intent of the data. Another question for someone asking about accessing data, we are telling them PromoStandards has said, well, you don't have a REST API. I don't understand. So great question. You are going to see a large initiative this year through PromoStandards and I don't want to ruin the thunder, but Eric talked about this on the last closing day of the Tech Summit. So if you weren't there, I guess I could call it member benefit. But yes, you will see us moving you'll see us having an additional offering of a more modern framework for the long time debate of the SOAP versus REST conversation. So I don't want to elaborate too much because honestly, that might be our next education session of setting what that future is. So I would say that's take that conversation to Slack if you're a member already, and take it to the general channel. And I'm sure the standards committee will chime in there where needed. Okay, we officially answered all the questions. If you have any additional questions, put them in Slack. Put them, you can email Jessica, email myself. We're pretty responsive for the most part. So thank you everybody for doing this. We will see you next Tuesday, next month, the third Tuesday of the month. And yeah, all aboard the pirate ship. Let's go. Thank you.